March 10th, and this is the joint meeting of the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee and the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee. Council Committee Chair Navarro and I discussed, and I will chair our proceedings today. We have a number of items in the recommended capital improvements program that are economic development projects. And not to bury the lead, but we don't anticipate there being significant divergence here from the recommended budget, but we will walk through our staff recommendation and perhaps there'll be some discussion on some of the points to get some information. Having said that, I'm not sure if my co-chair would like to make a comment and then we can proceed. Okay, all good?
I think you set it up nicely, Chairman Reamer.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Gene Smith, why don't you take us into the packet and introduce our participants?
Sure. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm joined today by several participants from executive staff, including Department of General Services, Office of Management and Budget, and the Office of the County Executive for the various economic development projects that the committees will look at today. There's only one project that the executive has recommended funding for in fiscal 23 to 28, so we'll look at that one first. There's 5 others that have spending in fiscal 22 that we'll look over, but as noted in the packet, the committees do not need to make any recommendation on those 5 PDFs because there's no funding recommended beyond what's currently expected in fiscal 22. So with that, the first project is the White Oak Science Gateway Redevelopment Project. As the long history of this is not held in the packet because we've been visiting it for a rather long time, but this project holds the $40 million for the General Development Agreement out in White Oak for the previously 110-acre lot of the county. And as noted, there is $39.6 million programmed in the CIP for this in fiscal 23 through 28. 400,000 of that is for planning, design, and supervision, which is for DGS to continue to manage the project out there through the GDA. And then the other 40 million is expected to be, the other 39.2 million is for the road construction for the 3 master planned roads that were out there. As noted in the staff packet, about 800,000 is currently encumbered for fiscal 22. Should the development out there move forward, that is available and ready to go. And should it not, then it would just move back into fiscal 23. Other than that, the council staff recommends approval of the executive's recommended CIP for this project. Thank you.
Terrific. All right. Well, it's a great opportunity to get some update on the White Oak project. I know, Greg Osant, you have been very involved in that. And, we had a little bit of a kerfuffle a couple of years ago as we were trying to figure out the funding and making sure it is available for this project at the time that the project moves forward. Seems like we have that consensus now. But Greg, maybe you could share us an update on what you're hearing or seeing out there in the real world.
Sure, and good afternoon, Greg Osant, Department of General Services, and obviously, Councilmember Reamer, we have a number of folks within the executive branch who are working on economic development initiatives, but having the history of this, the update is probably very similar to the previous updates, and the miscommunication I think you alluded to during the last CIP cycle was really related to the allocation of the $40 million commitment. We never lost sight of that $40 million commitment, but given the timing of the potential timing of the roadway projects, and Mary Beck is here with me, we did adjust the expenditure schedule, but the $40 million commitment has never been lost or not included in the executive CIP for any submittal. That said, the development team led by Viva White Oak are continuing to mark up the project and provide periodic updates to us. However, it's very apparent that since there is no preliminary plan and no active subdivision underway with Park and Planning, that the timing of these master plan roadways has slipped yet again. And so what you see here in the expenditure schedule are relatively smaller numbers in FY 23, 24, and 25, and then the larger numbers, which would be the bulk of the roadway construction in 26, 27, and 28. But again, all 40 million is accounted for in the 6-year CIP as it has traditionally been since we adopted the general development agreement and executed that with GLDC, the development partner.
Okay, Council Chair Navarro, Committee Chair Navarro.
Thank you. I guess I just want to state the obvious, which is that this is such a central project for a very important part of the county, and is a bit, I don't know, demoralizing because we're disappointing that I just don't hear any updates. Like I don't really hear any real aggressive sort of approaches or updates or information, et cetera, or activity. And I could be wrong, right? From the executive side, because this is so, such an important component of the executive's plate, to make sure that projects like these, which have had so much work go into it to get us to this point, that they actually move forward in some way. And so I don't know if there's anybody here. I mean, I understand this probably is for another session, but we should not, I think that something as important as this, for us to just kind of discuss it and just kind of say, okay, fine, let's move on, just seems so tone deaf to me. Like, I don't understand why we have not had more movement with something of the sort. Can you elaborate a little bit more, Mr. Assad?
Yeah, I think probably most notably, we do need to schedule some sort of a follow-up with the committee or committees as a result of some of the delays and lack of activity. As you all know, the county executive has brought on a White Oak planning manager who would obviously be a lead in that conversation. And so we want to make sure that we have all the right folks in front of you to answer questions. The DGS involvement has been largely in part to the CIP requests and the facilitating of the calls and draws that would be associated with that roadway project, and the economic development activities and the marketing, et cetera, that you're alluding to, Councilmember Navarro. Certainly require some input from other executive branch staff members, and we can certainly follow up with those folks and make sure that you get responses to all of your inquiries.
Is this from your perch, in terms of all the work that you've done, which has been really extraordinary, and I obviously want to express my appreciation, because you have led a lot of very important projects in the county, but don't you think this is this particularly odd? I mean, it seems like it's just kind of like stagnant there for something of this importance to our economic development goals.
I appreciate the recognition. Certainly, I think probably the biggest question is the residential market in particular is some of the strongest market activity that we've seen in the county in quite some time. And as you know, this is a 300-acre project. There's lots of density, and there's a significant amount of residential development capacity available. So from that perspective, I would not want to wade into the waters of a commercial or life sci or those types of things. We have other folks who are expert on that and can certainly respond better than I can. But yes, in terms of having a 300-acre project available and ready to go through the park and planning process and ultimately be developed, it is a little curious as to this pace.
I appreciate that. I mean, again, I just think that, this council, especially during this term, has been very vocal and very active in promoting economic development. Not just promoting it, but really setting the stage for the strategic direction of economic development, which is something that has been different than other terms and other administrations. I will recognize that. But I think it speaks to this notion that, unless there is a commitment, a very active commitment from the administration, particularly from the executive, we will continue to miss opportunities. And it is just not acceptable that we are in this moment in time with as you pointed out, the housing market the way it is, in an area that we have all have all embraced as an extraordinarily very well positioned area for opportunities and for job creation and et cetera, but it does need that kind of championship. I mean, we can only do so much. So, I mean, I think I'm stating the obvious, but I just wanted to be on record on that, on this issue once again. I mean, literally, one of the very first actions that I took as a newly minted council member, along with Valerie Irvin, then who represented that area, was to, fight to include this particular master plan in the parking plan, in the planning department's work plan. It wasn't even there, and understanding that it takes time, right? But a lot of time has gone by. I mean, this is my last term, and we've all done whatever we can, but it needs that kind of championing, and I'm very disappointed that that here we are once again just kind of repeating ourselves with not much activity. So anyway, just want to be on record regarding this issue once again, and thank you again for everything that I know that you have done to really, to make sure that many projects of great importance to the county have moved forward appropriately. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair Navarro, I'll just add to your comment here, which is that this project, I think more than many others, needs a county economic environment that is strong. This project is in a location that has not yet been part of major development activity. And unfortunately, the entire East County decades ago was written out of the development vision of the county. There were elected officials who said, the anti-growth mindset is the right mindset, and we don't want to see growth in East County. We want it to stay the same forever. And what happens when you do that is things don't stay the same, they decline. And that in some ways is what that community experienced in certain parts, and it lacked the progress that other parts of the county were getting. And we have tried to rectify that by making a large piece of land available and by building the transportation infrastructure to it, and all of these, tax policies that are supportive. I think we've put a lot of things in place. I think a bigger picture challenge for the county is, this has to be a place that the private sector wants to invest more, just in very general ways. And we're seeing a lack of development activity all over, not only in East County, but, on Rockville Pike or in downtown Silver Spring. And until we solve that problem, it's going to be even harder for a project to get up the hill, if it doesn't have that proximity advantage. And, we've got to, I think your economic development platform was very positive in that respect. The point is, we've got to lean into economic growth, and we've got to be willing to make some changes, and we've got to adopt that growth-oriented mindset. And sometimes that means doing things that can be a little uncomfortable or might, cause some concern in certain quarters. But, it's what you got to do if you want to be a place that, the private sector wants to invest. And I think, unfortunately, the lesser advantaged parts of the county bear the bigger brunt when we don't see that kind of investment and that kind of progress. And so, it certainly doesn't help when the executive, cheers in the wrong direction on something like this, which has sadly happened. But in any event, I think it's caught up in some big picture challenges here, and we need an assertive, leadership in the county that has an economic development game plan.
I appreciate you mentioning that, Chairman Reamer. I think that the point that I'm illustrating is that, there are windows of opportunity, and when those windows of opportunity present themselves, then we have to act.
Yeah.
That is what is so depressing about this particular situation, is that, many of us work to set the stage, but there have been windows of opportunities that have not been taken advantage of. And so then we perpetuate what you just described, which is this notion that, in particular areas of the county, because I've heard that time and time and time again, being somebody that represents these areas, right? It's the perpetuation of the cycle of well, these are not as desirable areas. Therefore, you don't see a lot of investment. Therefore, and we have to break that cycle. And breaking that cycle means that we have to set the stage. We have to start somewhere. It's like the Wheaton revitalization. Of course, that's not going to be the end all be all for Wheaton, but it's a starting point, right? And then we got to be like aggressive to make sure that we're building on that. Same thing with the East County. It's unconscionable that here we are once again with like no movement. No, that is not acceptable for that area of the county, which by the way is quite vibrant, right? There is also this myth that the people that live there somehow, are not like, it's not like a vibrant, mixed income community with a lot of purchasing power. But it is really important. So anyway, this is perhaps for another session, I understand, but I think it's also connected to this moment because we are again affirming that nothing is happening. And that really, I hope, it will change very soon. That's all I will say. Thank you.
Mary Beck, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say, though, I think that the county has done a lot. I think council's been involved in that. I mean, every time there's been sort of a hurdle, we've been told, we come up and do what needs to be done. We've cleared the site. We've met the obligations we said we were going to have. We've given exemptions for opportunity zones on impact taxes. All of these things, I do wish we had some performance metrics with regard to timeliness, because unfortunately we're in some ways held hostage. If people choose not to move on this right now, we can be a cheerleader, we can be out there trying to help make things happen, but we are not in full control, and that is frustrating for everybody.
Yeah, I think the county and the council has, put this project on, very close to the finish line.
Yeah.
With the tax policies, the zoning, the transportation. I think we've done everything possible. Again, I'm trying to make a separate point, which is for the private sector to step up and invest here. There has to be a strong pro-business investment climate in the county. You've got to have companies that are willing to take a risk. And we're not seeing enough of that. And there's a lot of, frankly, anti-growth policy that bounces around. And it hampers the investment climate. And so projects suffer. And I think, East County is not going to get what it needs until we address that. And I could cite a lot of examples right now, but, I'll just hold back. I think but we've got to recognize that, that the county has to embrace a different mentality about growth and change if it wants to get the benefits of that. And this lot is going to remain empty, just like the lot frankly, at the White Flint Metro or the mall in White Flint. These lots are going to remain empty until those bigger questions are starting to move in a more positive direction. All right. Well, soapbox for the day. So I think there's no objection to Nancy, did you still have your hand raised, or is that from before? Okay. That is this item. I'm sure there are no objections to keeping this item available, funding available, and on track. And
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Oh, Mr. Orlando is with us.
Yes, I've been with us since the beginning here, just not on camera.
Oh, okay. You're off camera.
I would appreciate if we could set up a future, not in the, this context is not appropriate, but to bring Mr. Jen and the team from White that have been working on that before the committee. It could be a PHED committee or a joint committee. I don't, for the council, frankly, to get an update because, to the points that have been made and to Ms. Beck's point, just in the time that I've been on the council in these last going on 4 years, we have done multiple things that were supposed to get it over the finish line. And this was going to be the thing that did it. And and have not seen the results. And so I think getting a direct update and asking directly what's going on and getting specifics on it as a council, as a body, I think is appropriate at some point. So I just want to flag that as a suggestion that I would personally like to do.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a good idea. So we'll talk to staff about making that happen.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
actually, Councilmember Jawando, I completely agree. I would like to recommend that we make it a little bit more holistic so that we also perhaps can invite Jeru Bondi, some folks from LabQuest, just because this is about the future of the East County. And no doubt that this particular project was one that many of us embraced as like the catalyst for a lot of things. So I think it would be important to hear, almost like a 360 of what is happening there and what could occur, obviously, if we were to realize at least a stage with this project. I mean, I know Montgomery College is finally coming there. I'm so excited. I had to pull out the letter and the proposal that I had drafted way back in like 2010 to bring Montgomery College to the East County. It took a little while to get there, but I'm so excited. So anyhow, I wonder if, for me, I think it would be interesting to just hear the 360 holistic sort of status of what's going on there.
Awesome. That's great.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So Jean will follow up on that with the co-chairs. Okay, next items. So Jean, you're saying the next 4 items are all capital budget items that are zero funded?
They're all, well, they have no funding recommended in fiscal 23 to 28 because the projects are being completed in 22. And so since they were included in the CIP and we are in the fiscal year 22, I wanted to provide an update to the council, to the committees. But as I noted, I mean, unless the committees want to recommend funding in fiscal 23 to 28, which you're certainly welcome to do, these projects will likely close out once the projects are done, whether that be in 22 or early 23. And so this is mostly an FYI session and a chance to ask questions related to these projects if the committees want. And I will go through them one by one. I don't think it'll take very long, but I'll stop after each project and you can, if the committees have questions, we'll see.
Okay.
All right. And they're in alphabetical order, so we'll just go. The first one's the Life Sciences and Technology Center project. This has been around for a while, and actually the council just approved an amendment to this in 22 to help outfit the Germantown Innovation Center with 4 wet labs by converting. No worries. By converting 10 offices. It's about $1 million right now that's appropriated for this and funded in 22. And again, as I noted in the packet, we expect that this project will finish sometime in 2022. And so once that is finished, this project is expected to close out. I'll pause there if there's any questions related to the Life Sciences and Technology Centers project.
Okay, so the Life Sci Village that's referred to there is not the White Oak Life Sci Village. It's different.
Correct. This has been a long-standing project in the CIP, and throughout the years, the council and executives, multiple councils and executives have amended it. And so some of that's just for historical purposes, but the sites you mentioned there is not White Oak, was in the Shady Grove area.
Okay. That was the Shady Grove one. All right.
All right. Hearing sorry, go on.
Ms. Navarro? Oh, sorry, your hand is up, so I wasn't sure. Okay, keep going.
Sure. The next one's the Long Branch Town Center redevelopment. Similar to the one I just spoke about, this one has been in the CIP for a while for various reasons. But in fiscals 19 and 24 CIP, the council amended it to, based on the executive's recommendation, to use it for funding for purposes related to the Purple Line and business development and community development. There were kind of 4 main areas that the funding would be used for, which was marketing, training, signage, and technical assistance for businesses in the Long Branch area. It's taken a little longer due to COVID to fully spend all this money to do the project as envisioned in fiscal 19. And there's about $56,000 left in this budget. In this project that the executive staff will continue to work with. And as they note, about $5,000 is going to be used for a mural on Bonifant Street, and then they'll continue to expend it based on the plans as previously approved by the council, but no funding is recommended beyond fiscal 22 for this project.
Okay, well, I know that, Long Branch is an area, I mean, these are all areas that are important. I think we're going to be talking about funding for the Long Branch community in the operating budget context, as part of a small business strategy that, has just been sort of percolating. So I guess we could come back to this if we wanted to add some funding for things like murals or other street furniture. But as of now, it is, closed out. When you say closed out, does that mean that the PDF goes away, or is that that just the expenditure closes out?
It could be both. I'll defer to OMB because that's a term that they particularly use in terms of an art for how they handle the CIP.
Right. When a project is closed out, what that means is that no more charges can be made to the project after the end of the prior fiscal year. So,
okay.
And
So,
it would go away. We wouldn't be seeing it or talking about it, but you could always create a new project. Sometimes it's better to do that to start fresh and have a set amount of work that you want to accomplish.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Keep going.
Sure. So the third one is the Marriott International Headquarters and Hotel project. This was back from fiscal 17 when the county approved an economic development fund agreement to support the relocation of Marriott's headquarters from to Bethesda. As noted, I mean, the building is almost done. In fact, I believe it's opening pretty soon. And this was not for a construction project. This was for the EDF or the Economic Development Fund agreement. That agreement will go through July of 2028, and so Marriott will be expected to meet certain performance metrics. They have met them to date, and the next report are expected sometime soon for 2021. That's all for this one.
Okay.
Mr. Navarro already spoke about the wonderful new building in the Wheaton, and the Wheaton redevelopment program is still in the CIP briefly because there's a few minor closeout activities. It's not a lot, but obviously we know that building is complete, as well as the community area outside of it. And so this project will close out once the last few remaining items are ticked off.
Okay.
All right, and then the final one is the White Flint redevelopment program. Previously, this was to hold funding for the White Flint development coordinator, as well as for contracts to help managing that special taxing district. And the executive did not recommend any funding in fiscal 23 to 28, which is a new direction. Previously, this had funding throughout the 6 years to continue that support. As noted in the PDF, this funding will move to the operating budget, and this will free up special taxing district dollars to fund transportation improvements in the White Flint area. And although there's no need to recommend this, council staff definitely supports that, given that special taxing district money was approved and set by the council so that area could build transportation improvement projects.
Okay. So we'll take it up in the operating budget.
Yep, and that would be all the projects that are for these for the general government economic development projects.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. All right. Well, seeing no objection, those will be approved without objection. Okay. No objection. Okay. Well, that concludes the business before the joint committees. And so thank you, everyone, and have a great day. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.